Hey, everybody. I hope you're doing well today. This is Brad Cartwright from Econ Course Companion. And today we're going to take a look at oligopoly, which is the next video in our series called the Theory of the Firm Key Terms series, which is designed to give you an overview of some of the key language you need to have available to you in order to be successful in IB economics. So oligopoly is one of the four market structures that we're going to take a look at. And in Theory of the Firm, the IB syllabus takes these market structures and uses them very much like a case study. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply the cost, revenue, and profit model, which is a series of diagrams that decides whether or not firms, or shows whether or not firms are successful or not, and then applies it to these four market structures. So let's take a look at a definition for oligopoly. So oligopoly is one of the four market structures with the following characteristics: a small number of large firms in the industry. Firms have significant control over price. Firms are interdependent on one another. Products may be differentiated or homogeneous, and there are high barriers to entry. And examples of these are car industry, the airline industry, electrical appliances, they're differentiated products, but that industry, and the steel, aluminum, copper, and cement industries, which have homogeneous products. Okay, so an oligopoly is kind of hard to get your mind around because you might not really think about it very much. But if you just think about the United States, if you can picture it maybe in the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, before there was a whole lot of competition for the car market, and there were really only three companies that made cars: Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. And those three firms were the only firms that made cars in the entire United States. So there was an oligopoly there, and they could have, and maybe they did, collude to set prices in the marketplace, okay? But at the same time, even though they could do that, really, it's kind of hard to do because actually they're kind of highly competitive against one another because there's so few of them, right? What one firm does is highly affects what the other firm does as well. So that changed a little bit in the 1980s with the addition of Toyota entering in the U.S. marketplace and Honda. And over time, of course, the car industry has gotten much, much more competitive, which naturally, as more firms enter into any marketplace, is going to have downward pressure on prices. The other industries mentioned here: steel, aluminum, copper, cement industries. There's just very few firms that have enough money to put into creating products that take such a high level of expertise and manufacturing, such a high level of manufacturing process, right? It's a difficult thing in order to manufacture steel, for example. So therefore, these firms have a lot of power in setting their price. And as a result of that, we're going to have a very interesting look at the cost, revenue, and profit models when we apply it to oligopoly. But the purpose of this video is just for you to understand what an oligopoly is, just for you to get your mind around the fourth, really, of the four market structures and think about how a firm might behave if it were in that market structure. And that's a very important point I've been making in all of these videos, that this model of cost, revenue, and profit is how firms decide where they're going to set their prices for a particular firm or for a particular product. But then they would behave differently in these market structures, just like all of us as human beings behave differently in the structures in which we navigate: school, home, with your grandparents, with your friends. You probably behave differently in those market structures. Well, a firm's going to behave differently in those market structures as well, because ultimately firms are just groups of people, right? And the structures that they're in, and whether or not they're a price taker, like perfect competition, or price makers, like they are in monopolies or in monopolistic competition, and also in oligopolies, is going to dictate how they behave. All right, my friends, be good to one another out there. I hope you found this video to be helpful, and we'll talk to you in a bit.